Clean up on floor 33. The janitor, B.N.Rocker, pushed his cleaning cart along the dimly lit corridor of an office building late at night in Dayton, Ohio. The only sounds were the soft hum of the overhead lights and the occasional distant crackles of the building settling into the night after a hot day. As Bick cleaned the floor, an unusual flicker of light caught his eye. Under a door, it flashed intermittently, like a signal, casting strange shadows that danced across the frosted glass of the door. Paired with the light, a series of odd, pulsating sounds emanated from inside, whirs and beeps that Bick had never heard before in his years of working there. The building should have been empty. Curious, he edged closer to the door. Leaning in, he placed his ear against the cool glass, the mechanical symphony growing clearer. Suddenly, the door handle began to turn. In a swift motion, Bick straightened up, slipping on his headphones and pretending to sweep the hallway, his heart pounding in his chest. As the door creaked open, Bick cast a covert glance inside. His gaze caught a fleeting glimpse of something extraordinary. A section of the wall shimmered like a mirror made of water, rippling and glowing with an ethereal light. The surface of this liquid mirror danced with colors that pulsed rhythmically, drawing his eyes with their mesmerizing movements. It was as though he was looking into the eyes of an angel, the light dancing in a beautiful, mysterious ballet. The people who emerged from the office, a pair of stern-faced men in dark suits, seemed oblivious to his presence. They spoke in hushed, urgent tones. As they walked past Bick, their shoes left mud on the floor. Mud in an office building on nice shoes. He thought strange indeed, but Bick lowered his head and kept sweeping, bouncing to the tune on his headphones as they continued down the hallway and disappeared into the elevator, which descended with a soft whine. Left alone in the corridor, Bick's mind raced. The normalcy of his night shift had been shattered with the men gone. Curiosity overcame caution. He knew he had to see the office up close to understand the rippling, luminous wall. What secrets did it hold? B.N.Rocker tentatively stepped into the office where he'd glimpsed the extraordinary. Inside, the room looked shockingly normal, papers strewn about, a desk littered with the typical office paraphernalia, and a faint smell of stale coffee lingering in the air. But against the far wall, where a mundane painting might have hung, there was instead a panel embedded in the wall. It was sleek, unassuming, and bore a digital display showing the numbers 12 by 33 by 21. His curiosity piqued. Bick approached the panel, his fingers hovering before touching the smooth surface. As soon as he made contact, the panel lit up, presenting him with options: recall or new destination. With his heart racing with excitement, Bick pressed new destination. Instantly, the wall before him began to transform. Lines of light snaked across the surface, weaving an intricate network that pulsed with vibrant energy. The wall's dull paint seemed to dissolve, revealing a swirling vortex that shimmered with a myriad of colors, like oil on water under a moonlit sky. The air around him buzzed with the electricity of the unknown, and the wall opened fully, revealing a scene from another world. Bick could see an office, not unlike the one he stood in, but with subtle, unsettling differences. The desks were arranged in an unfamiliar pattern, the technology on them strange but similar. The light seemed brighter, harsher. Compelled by a force he couldn't resist, Bick reached out his hand towards the wall. His fingers met no resistance, just a slight tingling sensation as they passed through the surface. Taking a deep breath, Bick stepped through, realizing it's a portal, emerging into the parallel office. The atmosphere was eerily similar, yet unmistakably different. The air had a different quality and smell. As he cautiously explored this new environment, his attention was drawn to the sound of footsteps approaching. Panicking, Bick ducked behind a nearby desk just as the door opened. Another janitor, cart and all, entered the room, beginning to clean. This man was a mirror image of Bick, yet there were distinct differences in his demeanor and dress. His uniform was slightly more fitted, his hair styled differently, and he carried himself with a subtle confidence. After a moment of stunned silence, Bick stepped out from his hiding place, his presence catching his doppelganger by surprise. The other janitor stared with an expression of bewilderment. "Who are you?" the alternate Bick asked, his voice a curious echo of Bick's own. I think I'm you, but not from here," Bick stammered, his mind racing to grasp the surreal encounter. The two men circled each other. After a tense moment, his expression softened into a smile. "Looks like we have a lot to talk about, huh?" he said, extending his hand in greeting. "Or maybe little to talk about," bursting out in laughter. As they shook hands, a bond formed instantaneously, a strange kinship only possible between two versions of the same soul. Together, they began to walk through the building, the alternate Bick eager to show his counterpart the nuances of this parallel universe. After exploring the nuances of the parallel world with his alternate self, Bick, eager to show his counterpart his world, set off together. They approached the portal once more. This time, the panel in the alternate world showed a different series of numbers. Bick noted this carefully, a seed of understanding beginning to germinate in his mind. These weren't just random digits. They represented the coordinates of the worlds, a sort of address in this vast network of interdimensional travel. "Let's go," his doppelganger said, slapping Bick on the shoulder. Bick chuckled. He selected Recall on the panel, and the number above it confirmed his action. 12 by 33 by 21. That was his home, his anchor in this unfathomable sea of possibilities. The portal began its mesmerizing dance of colors, and Bick stepped through, the familiar tingling sensation greeting him as he passed back into his own world. As the portal sealed behind him, the familiar sight of the office welcomed him, but the atmosphere was charged with attention. The air felt thicker, the usual quiet of the night shift disrupted by distant, odd sounds, mechanical hums and low, rhythmic thuds that were completely out of place. Moving cautiously, they decided to investigate. As they stepped out into the hallway, the reality of their situation quickly became apparent. The building was under siege, but not by any earthly intruder. Small, metallic creatures, resembling oversized insects with shimmering, translucent wings, buzzed through the corridors. They moved with purpose, their bodies emitting a faint, eerie glow that cast ghostly shadows against the walls. Bick ducked behind a corner just as a group of these creatures zipped past. They didn't seem to notice him, focused instead on some unseen objective. His heart raced as he peeked around the corner, watching them enter an office and begin interfacing with the computers, their small appendages working deftly. It dawned on them both, after observing their activity, that these weren't random invaders. They were scouts, possibly the first wave of an invasion force. The portal he had discovered was likely not just a hidden gem, but a part of a larger network, one that these alien beings were using to infiltrate different worlds. Realizing the gravity of the situation, Bick knew he couldn't face this threat alone. He needed to warn someone, to get help, but who would believe such a story? As they pondered their next move, the sight of one of the creatures detaching a small device from its body and affixing it to a server sent a shiver down his spine. Whatever their plan is, it was already in motion, and time was running out. Together, Bick and his alternate self devised a daring plan. They would use the portal to recruit other versions of Bick from across the dimensions, each Bick likely having his own unique strengths and experiences that could contribute to their cause. Think of it, an army of us, an army of one, growing exponentially, Bick explained. The plan was simple, but bold. Every Bick they contacted would be instructed to jump to another world, find his counterpart, and tell him to do the same, exponentially increasing their numbers. The other Bick nodded, a smirk crossing his face. 2 becomes 4, 4 becomes 8, then 16, then 32. We'll meet back here in an hour. If all goes as planned, we'll have the numbers to form our own army. With the strategy set, they started their mission, adjusted the coordinates on the panel, and stepped through the portal into yet another dimension. The process repeated as each Bick found himself in a slightly different version of the office building, each world varying subtly from the last. Each Bick was initially skeptical, but the urgency of their shared plight, a fight not just for their world, but for all worlds, united them. They quickly agreed to the plan and set off to recruit more of themselves. As the numbers grew, so did their collective capability. Each new recruit brought a different skill set, expanding the potential strategies they could employ against the alien invaders. Within the hour, Bix from thousands of worlds converged back at the original meeting point. An endless flow, it seemed, poured into the room with the portal, a motley crew of janitors, all sharing the same face but each wearing a different expression of determination. "Looks like we've got ourselves an army," the original alternate Bick declared, looking around at the gathering. The sense of unity was inspiring. As they flowed past Bick, he barked orders to each version of himself as they came through the portal. "Keep moving. Make room." Bick felt a surge of pride as he looked around at the army of himself. It was an odd feeling, seeing so many versions of himself, but it strengthened his resolve. This was no longer a fight he faced alone. He had an entire army behind him, an army of one, multiplied. The battle ahead would be tough, but together they stood a chance. In the shadowy confines of the office building where the portal lay hidden, B.N.Rocker and his army of alternates prepared for their first real test, a probing attack to gauge the strength and intentions of the alien forces. It was crucial not just to repel the invaders, but also to gather intelligence on their technology and tactics. "Positions, everyone," commanded one of the Bicks, this one a natural leader who had swiftly taken the role of coordinating their movements. The alternates dispersed, each moving with purpose to their assigned posts around the portal room and the adjacent corridors. Bick, alongside a few of his alternates, took position near the main entrance of the room. They were equipped with makeshift weapons, anything from heavy tools repurposed from the building's maintenance rooms to experimental gadgets devised by the more technologically savvy Bicks. Their hearts pounded in unison, a rhythmic heartbeat from an army of one. The attack came sooner than expected. A small scouting party of the alien creatures emerged from the shadows, their bodies glinting with an eerie metallic sheen under the flickering lights of the hallway. They moved silently, their presence almost ghostly as they approached. As they entered the kill zone, the Bicks sprang into action. Lights flashed and improvised weapons discharged, hurling projectiles. The element of surprise was on their side, and the precision of their ambush raised their spirits. The skirmish was intense but brief. The Bicks' knowledge of the building's layout played in their favor, allowing them to funnel the invaders into a narrow corridor lined with traps. The aliens, though initially taken by surprise, quickly adapted, their movements becoming more cautious, their tactics more deliberate. Despite the aliens' adaptability, the coordinated defense mounted by the Bicks proved successful. The invaders were repelled, leaving behind valuable wreckage from their damaged equipment. Immediately, the Bicks moved in, eager to analyze the alien technology, hoping to uncover weaknesses or even repurpose it for their own use. As the dust settled, the Bicks regrouped in the command center. They had faced their enemy and held their ground, and while this victory was minor, it was vital. It bolstered their spirits and solidified their camaraderie, proving that their plan could work and that they could depend on each other in battle. "This is just the beginning," Bick announced to his gathered counterparts, a determined glint in his eye. "We've shown we can defend our ground. Now, we need to prepare for what's next." In the aftermath of their first successful defense, B.N.Rocker noticed the panel beside the portal still glowed with an active light, the recall button locked onto their home world. Realizing the potential this offered, an audacious idea formed in his mind, one that could turn the tide of the conflict completely. Spread the word. Bick shared his plan, his voice ringing with determination. "This portal is our greatest asset. The recall is still set to their homeworld. I say we use it to build a force so vast that the aliens won't stand a chance. Let's turn this into a trillion-man army. We'll meet back here in 24 hours, then push through to their main base. It's time to take the fight to them." A never-ending stream of me. Inspired by the bold strategy, waves of Bicks began using the portal, each with a singular mission: recruit more of themselves in return. The portal room buzzed with activity, a constant stream of alternates stepping through the swirling gateway. With the forces starting to show, Bick initiated the next phase of their plan. The portal settings were adjusted, targeting the coordinates of the main alien command center, discovered from the analysis of the alien technology they had salvaged. This was the heart of the enemy's operations, the node from which they launched their multi-dimensional invasions. The operation commenced. The Bix, armed with makeshift weapons, moved through the portal in an unending wave, emerging directly inside the alien base. The surprise was total, the command center thrown into chaos as countless Bix flooded the enemy chambers. Resistance was fierce. The aliens, though initially taken by surprise, quickly rallied their defenses, engaging in intense firefights throughout their stronghold. But the sheer number of Bix, relentless and unyielding, overwhelmed them. Room by room, corridor by corridor, the Bix advanced, their coordination and shared purpose making them an unstoppable force. As the battle reached its climax, the alien commanders, realizing the futility of their position against such a vast and determined army, signaled their surrender. The terms were clear. Not only would they cease their invasion of Bix home dimension, but they would also withdraw from all occupied worlds across the multiverse. The victory was profound. As the Bix secured the alien command center, ensuring the release of countless worlds from oppression, a sense of euphoria spread among them. They had not only defended their own worlds, but had also freed many others from the threat of invasion. Bix stood amidst the sea of his alternates, each one sharing in the triumph. The unity and strength they had found in their numbers had turned the tide against an overwhelming foe. They had started as a single man, faced with an impossible challenge, and now they stood together, a force that spanned dimensions. "We did it," Bix said to the gathered crowd, his voice echoing through the command center. "We came together, an army of one, and we changed our fates. When there's a mess too big, too tough, or just too strange, there's only one call you need to make: the janitor. He will clean up any mess you have and show up tomorrow and do the same." This is not goodbye, nor the end. Until the story continues, my friends. B.N.Rocker.